This meeting is now being recorded.
Good morning, everyone. This is Lenita Hartman. Welcome to November's monthly technical assistance call. I am joined here today by Monty, Laura, Ashley Fernie, and Wayla. So we're glad to have you joining us today. We're going to be giving you a little bit of support and guidance to address turnover in service coordinators. Just as a reminder, we talked about this as one of the areas at the statewide meeting that was a priority for more technical assistance and support, and we want to continue to bring back topics that were discussed during the statewide meeting and have been identified as multiple communities as challenges. So today we're going to spend some time talking about how to support your service coordinators through the service coordination core competencies, and really think about how we can value service coordinators more as part of the IFSP team and feel confident in the work that they do. One of the statements we've heard is that service coordinators are reporting that they're just note takers and processors of documents, and so really thinking together about how we can support them in really understanding the critical role they play in this process and what we need to do to encourage them. We're also going to share a few billing reminders, tips for some contract language, and I know that Ashley Fernie is going to share some information about the Family Outcomes Survey. So we have a lot to cover today, and we're probably going to need to go through some slides pretty quickly. So if we're going too fast, please put questions in the chat. We're going to keep you muted until we have some time for Q&A. Right. And so if you have questions, go ahead and put them in the chat. All right, I'm going to go ahead and turn it over to Laura.
Okay. So today our agenda, we'll be looking at the core competencies for service coordination and talking a little bit about training requirements and office hours. We're going to think about training for EI providers and give you some contract language tips, as we said earlier, and then we will lastly have Ashley providing some information on the Family Outcome Survey, and we'll share with you whatever updates there are. Okay, so here is the slide that is talking about the service coordination core competencies. You have gotten those sent out to you with the TA call information, so if you have those available, you can follow along with the next couple slides. As you can see, these kids are really excited about the service coordination core competencies, and so are we, because they haven't been updated in a while. So let's talk a little bit about what the service coordination core competencies are. Hopefully all of you have heard about those. They were first developed in 2014 by a stakeholder group as a way to really talk about the skills and the knowledge that service coordinators have. It was a way that we can talk about the shared core competencies service coordinators should have, which fulfills, of course, one of our requirements, that all children and families throughout the state have the same level of consistent and competent service coordination. Another reason behind the development of the competencies was to really professionalize service coordinators. We often hear from service coordinators that this is such a hard job and takes such high levels of skill, and it's difficult sometimes to be recognized for those skills and knowledge that you have. So the way that these were developed is that to recognize that even though service coordinators have varying backgrounds, you all have high levels of expertise and are truly EI professionals. It's also important to keep in mind that there are expectations of skills and knowledge that service coordinators need to have to do this work. And with any job, there are requirements. And really supporting service coordinators to meet these requirements is your first step to minimizing stress and turnover. The service coordinator coordination competencies can be used in a variety of ways, which we have listed on the slide here. You can use them as a tool for developing job descriptions for hiring. You can use them to identify areas that may benefit from some on-the-job training. They can be used during the performance review process through ongoing mentoring, and service coordinators can use them for self-assessment. You can take a look at the core competencies and say, whoa, really? I'm supposed to know about that? I'm going to ask my supervisor where I can gain some knowledge in that area. These were just updated on the 30th of October, and so Monty sent out a copy of the new competencies which you have in front of you. I'm not going to go through each of the items under the core competencies just for sake of time, but we're going to talk about basically the areas that the competencies address and the purpose behind each of those areas. Then as you go through those and look at them in more detail, feel free to reach out to us with any questions that you have or ideas for use of the competencies, anything that is relevant. So the first section of the competencies, section 1, the knowledge and skill areas that are addressed in that competency, you can see right here. And that section really is meant to assure the understanding of service coordinators of the regulations, how advisory councils work, and how agencies collaborate to support local and state EI processes. The next section is around procedural safeguards, and you can see what the knowledge and skill areas are right there. Now let me tell you a little bit about how the document looks that you have in front of you, the document of the Early Intervention Colorado Service Coordination Competencies. You'll see on the left-hand side is actually the knowledge and skill areas for each of these sections. That's just basically telling you the topical areas that we'll be talking about in each of those areas. Then on the right-hand side, you'll see that there is a way that you can see those competencies demonstrated. And that's really what competencies are about. It's not just about knowledge, it's about how you can see service coordinators implementing that knowledge in their everyday work supporting children and families in early intervention. So the second one is procedural safeguards, and you'll see there are several skill areas there. And really the intent behind this section is to assure that families understand their rights and procedural safeguards, that service coordinators know how to talk with families about those rights, and that families always know that they have the consent and full knowledge to participate in decisions made for their children. Just a reminder that there is a recording of the procedural safeguards training and many resources available to review on the EI website in regards to procedural safeguards. Section 3 is the IFSP process itself. Now this is a big section. You'll see that there are lots and lots of knowledge and skill areas there. And the purpose behind this section of competencies is to really assure that the IFSP plan and process beginning at referral is understood and followed in alignment with state and federal timelines and requirements. We know we want to recognize definitely in this area that service coordinators play an extremely integral role in the development of the IFSP, and that they are really the holder of the knowledge and the member of the IFSP team that makes sure that all goes according to plan for the family. The fourth section is transition. You'll see the knowledge and skill areas here. There's detail in your document under as demonstrated by, and the purpose of this section is to assure that families have the knowledge and support to successfully transition out of early intervention and for their child to be successful in the new setting. As a reminder, last month's TA call was on transition and those materials are posted, so you can use those PowerPoint slides as further resource information. Section 5 is funding for early intervention services. You see the knowledge and skill areas here. This section assures that EI services are funded appropriately and that the family understands how payment for EI services is determined. Remember that a required document here is the coordinated system of payments for EI services that is provided to parents and discussed with parents so that they understand that EI services are not really free. They are provided to parents at no cost to them through a combination of utilization of funding resources. This is a required form, and you can find it on the EI website under CCBs and the forms link. The sixth section is family-centered practice. You'll see that there are a variety of knowledge and skill areas here, and the purpose behind this section is to assure that families are partners in early intervention, that they are full participants and informed decision makers for their child. There are lots and lots of resources that can help you better understand family-centered practice. A great one that I would recommend for anyone if you haven't already done it is to complete the Universal Online Part C training. You can find that simply by Googling Universal Online Part C training. It's also a part of the Bridge Training Workbook. If you have gone through that, you'll find the link to that training there. This training was developed by a national community of practice that was made up of many service coordinators, service coordination leads, EI directors, and early childhood researchers. Came together to develop this training as a way to share practices that are not individualized to a state, but are good practices that should be implemented in EI throughout the nation.
So there's a question from Colleen.
All right.
And she says, Laura, I like the assurance statements you've included in the slides as it gives an intent for why this is important. Could this be added to the competencies document?
Great idea. We will take it under advisement.
Well, and these, Colleen, these slides will be available too. So if you want to, access them to help support your discussion around this document in the meantime, we just updated these, so we can think of that as a future endeavor. But
I do really appreciate that feedback, because I think that part of the reason these may not be used as much as we would like and for the purposes that they were designed to be used for is that people don't understand the intent. So I really appreciate that. That's a great idea.
Yeah.
Okay. Any other questions? No? Okay. Section 7 is on infant and toddler development. And this, you'll see the knowledge and skill areas there. Now, we want to clarify that this does not mean that every service coordinator has to have an extensive background in child development. What this section is meant to assure is that service coordinators have knowledge of those basic child development concepts, and that you can support families in understanding and use of developmental resources. There are great resources out there on developmental milestones, on child development that can be shared with families, but what we found is it's not enough to just share them with families. You need to be able to talk with families a little bit about development and how development happens in young children. As we've rolled out the new integrated Go For It process, it's really made it apparent that how important it is that service coordinators have a basic understanding of child development. It doesn't mean that they have to be the child development specialist on the team, but it is a competency that is important. The next section is service coordination, and the purpose behind this is really to assure effective and respectful communication among IFSP team members, among the professionals that are working with the family and with the family and their and caregivers. You'll see the knowledge and skill areas there. And I just want to talk a little bit about this because one of the best things you can really do for service coordinators is to ensure they know what the expectations are of their role. People are a lot more likely to accept suggestions or constructive criticism if they understand what the work that they're doing really encompasses. There's nothing worse than feeling like you're doing a good job and then being told you were wrong and need to fix something when you didn't even know that was something you were supposed to be doing or that there was a right way to do it. So service coordinators really are responsible for knowing what the requirements of their work are. So when you can provide as an EI director or a service coordination supervisor or a service coordinator that's mentoring another service coordinator, if you're able to provide clear resources, direction, and materials, this really will help your service coordinators feel more comfortable in their job and as the true professionals that they are. Sorry, I got to take a drink. A lot of talking. Section 9 is professionalism, and that's the last section of the competencies. You can see the knowledge and skill areas there. This section assures professional work habits and supports ongoing learning and professional development for service coordinators. You know, we all have bad habits. For some of you that have been in the field a long time, you know that even recommended practices change. You know, things happen. Human perspectives change. For instance, it used to be mandatory for all well-dressed men to wear a hat in public. That's changed. So we want to make sure that we recognize that sometimes there are also changes in professional practices and work habits. That's okay. You know, one thing that comes to mind is the use of social media now and the use of cell phones in our work. But we want to make sure that we're always thinking about how to support our service coordinators in being true professionals and communicating respectfully. One thing that really helps value the professionalism of service coordinators is to provide opportunities for ongoing training and professional development. To really encourage your staff and service coordinators to do what they're good at, to use their strengths to benefit your team as a whole. So remember, it's important to maintain at least monthly contact with the parent whose child is enrolled in EI services. It's a requirement because the service coordinator is the one here that assures the plan that's developed for the family is being implemented in a way that truly works for them. All right. So we had one question from Colleen, but let's move on to other questions. You can enter them in the chat. You want to try and unmute? We'll try unmuting people for a moment, and if we get a lot of feedback, we'll have to... No?
All guests have been unmuted.
Okay. All right. Questions either in the chat or you are unmuted now. We really hope that you will embrace this document and use it as a way to clarify the role that service coordinators have. Was there someone unmuting?
Hi, can you guys hear me?
Barely.
Oh, okay. Hold on, I'll bring it closer. Hi.
Okay, we got you. Hi.
I'm Erica, we're service coordinator, and I'm having a little bit of difficulty with some of my families when it comes to primary provider model and us not having clear documents to give to families that describe what primary provider model is. Where can I find this documentation, or if there is no documentation, is that in the works?
Yes, there is a primary provider brochure right now that's available on the website, and that's actively in the process of being updated and revised.
Okay, because I have one, but the one I have, was given to me by my supervisor, but it is from 2008.
Yeah, that's the only one we have right now, but that is in the process of being revised.
Okay, thank you. It's causing a little bit of difficulties with families who are in the trust fund and want multiple services.
Okay.
But our primary provider model for Colorado does not follow a multi-provider model. So I know it's a case-by-case basis, but it would be really great to have that service.
Sorry, we're getting we're getting a lot of feedback. Erica, I just put 4 stars by that.
Okay, thank you so much. I really appreciate it.
So as soon as that is revised, we'll let you know.
Okay, thank you so much.
I think this is Lenita, a larger discussion is how you're talking with families at the very beginning of intake and referral and explaining the EI model and what it looks like at your CCB. And that might be something that you want to revisit with your supervisor, with your CCB, to just make sure that families are understanding the model.
Yeah, introducing the topic early is really does help with that. Thank you, Lenita.
Yeah, I do that with my families, and with a lot of families it is that's not a problem and they fully understand. But some of these families do need things in a written document that has the state's name by it, because otherwise to them it's just words out of our mouth. I know that
I get you.
I'm sorry?
I said I definitely understand that.
Yeah, so it's just a really great way for us to support you guys as a state, but also for you all to support us as a team, all as one, for Colorado. And I know our program manager and supervisors are working on that with a few other CCBs as well. But I just wanted to bring it to you all's attention in case it hadn't been, because that would be super helpful for some of the parents who push back a little bit.
Great. Thank you, Erica, for bringing that up.
Yeah, thank you so much.
Anyone else? Okay, well, what I'd like to request of you, as you delve into the use of these revised competencies more, and you have feedback or things that you think are missing, things that you think are not relevant, as Colleen's suggestion to add the intent onto those, if you just would let someone in the Program Initiatives Unit, you can email me directly. This is Laura, and we'll collect all those responses. Thank you very much.
Okay, we're going to go ahead and mute you again.
All guests have been muted.
Okay, again, we realized we spent a lot of time at the statewide meeting on talking about self-care, and we had a phenomenal presentation about that, and I know that communities have reached out and are doing more work on this, but we just wanted to just reiterate the importance of thinking collectively, not only as a state, but as your individual communities, about service coordinators, providers, other professionals that are in the home working directly with children and their families. If they're families and children that have experienced trauma, that professional is at a higher risk for secondary trauma and some of the symptoms that go along with that. And also those who are carrying a heavy caseload of children who have experienced trauma, if they're socially or organizationally isolated, like many of our independent contractors are, sometimes they're kind of isolated, or if they feel like they have not had enough training in this area, they're at high risk for secondary trauma. So really thinking about how you can take care of yourself and recognize the symptoms, and how we can do a better job at the state supporting you with supporting the folks that are in the home doing the hard work, and how you can do that as a community. a piece to this is really thinking about those accomplishments and small victories that do happen, hopefully on a daily basis, if not, daily, then at least weekly or monthly, because sometimes we're so busy and we're so into the next deadline or whatever we're working on and we've moved on, we haven't reflected on the good things that have happened, the families we're working with that we really made a difference. And so taking a step back to reflect on that and celebrate with your coworkers is really critical. And we do have a resource for you about 6 ways to weave self-care into your workday. I don't know if that was sent out, Monty.
No.
But we can send that out as a resource to think about that, so that you're hitting the pause button, not only just reflecting internally, but also with your team, and debriefing so that you can stay connected to why we're doing this work in the first place and the contributions that we know you're all making every day for families, and thinking about even those little things that maybe we don't realize matter to a family but can make all the difference in the world. And I just don't think we take time to pause and really do that. We also wanted to just remind you that there are a lot of resources on self-care on the statewide meeting Padlet. So if you weren't able to visit that Padlet, if you're a service coordinator and you're interested in some of this information, please visit the link that's listed on your screen and explore some of those strategies as well. So now I'm going to turn it over to Monty to talk about some current training requirements.
Hello, everyone. Just as a reminder, the bridge training is currently the required service coordinator training, and office hours are part of that, of the training. So in order to sign off your certification that you've completed the bridge training, you need to participate in office hours. Their required training timelines are going to be updated as the state plan goes through revisions and will be open for public comment. Because we, recognize right now they don't quite align with what we're saying is what's available to you. But please ensure that new service coordinators complete all introductory training as required by the department as soon as possible. This is also when, talking about the current training requirements where the service coordinator competencies can help identify what you may need to provide as support or additional training around in your community based on what your processes are. It's the CCB's responsibility to make sure that their service coordinators meet those competencies and requirements. So.
There's also another suggestion about training. We've had lots and lots of providers who've taken the telehealth training. We also want to recommend that service coordinators take that as well, because a large part of telehealth provision is talking with the family about what telehealth will look like and understanding the required documents and permissions that are required to provide services in that manner. So it's really important that service coordinators understand the telehealth model as well as providers.
The completion of the Early Intervention Colorado online training workbook, which is located on the EI Colorado website, is what is required, what is considered the introductory training currently. That training workbook will be replaced with the EI fundamentals once we've completed the revision and creation of all of those modules. Just as some additional information, since June, there have been 22 service coordinators that have registered for office hours, and the Unicorn is now providing our team with a report weekly on new service coordinators and or managers that have been added to the data system. And just in the last week, there were 8 people. So there's a pretty big discrepancy between the number of service coordinators hired that I've been aware of in the last 6 months versus what I'm able to see now in the last week, and that who have completed office hours. So just as a reminder, it is a requirement for all service coordinators and EI directors or managers to complete this training. Additional instruction may be provided by the CCB on all of these topics. So Unicorn navigation or procedural safeguards, Laura mentioned that there are materials listed on the EI website to support you with learning and explaining the procedural safeguards, global outcomes, family assessment, and then the integrated ISSP process. So as your community, whatever your processes are for your service coordinators, the expectation is that you provide some additional instruction around these areas. In the current system, service coordinators and EI coordinators or supervisors are considered providers. So that means that they too need to have a profile and maintain their information in the EI Early Intervention Provider database. Again, since June, for those that have taken the bridge training, I was only able to find 2 certificates that were uploaded into the EI provider database out of all who had completed the training. So this is a requirement to have that information in the provider database. EI Colorado needs to be able to verify that service coordinators have completed the training. It's especially important if formal complaint proceedings need to happen, or to ensure that providers have completed the universal training and or telehealth training if that's something that they're billing for. So think about this as part of your initial process when you're onboarding a new staff member or you're entering or people into your data systems, that they too need to have a profile in the EI provider database. This is information straight out of the EI Colorado state plan. All of your providers need to have profiles with accurate contact information, up-to-date licensing and insurances, as well as all trainings that are completed. EI Colorado accesses this data system to send notifications and emails to providers and to verify that providers meet qualifications. Focus on office hours. Typically there's an email that gets sent out for those who are registered for office hours a day or so before the office hours actually are. And they're reminded with this information. They're asked to come prepared with their workbook completed. They're going to be asked to share their written reflection pieces of their workbook, including the script on how to introduce themselves to a family member, what their role as a service coordinator is. And we're also having discussions on the required components of service coordination, as well as funding and procedural safeguards. So just make sure that when your service coordinators are signed up for office hours, that they've had these discussions with their supervisors or trainers or leads so that they can participate in that discussion. And this needs to be completed within 60 days of hire, the completion of their office hours. With the EI fundamentals that are hopefully going to be launched here in the next couple months, it was decided to continue the practice of office hours. And the focus on those office hours are going to be on the IFSP development, family assessment, global outcomes transition, and requirements for documentation. So the hope and the intent is that the EI fundamentals are going to cover a lot of the other information, and that our time spent communicating are going to be on these areas. So about the EI fundamentals, the first 4 modules in the online format have been reviewed and are being finalized. So that's really exciting. It's really neat to see it coming together and the work that has been put into it. And the process of revisions is taking a long time, but that's because we want to ensure that the process is in alignment with what our this direction has been, and also that there's some interactivity as part of that training, so it's not just view some slides on a computer. So we really want it to be meaningful and reflective. So it's anticipated that there's going to be about 10 of those modules when they're completed. So stay tuned. We'll let you know as we get more updates. Are there any questions regarding training requirements or the information that we just talked about right now? You can enter it in the chat, or we can unmute you too if that works, and you can ask questions.
All guests have been unmuted.
Any thoughts on training or bridge training, EI provider database, requirements, anything?
Okay.
Okay.
I just have a question. Are CCBs finding it challenging to know which service coordinators have completed their bridge training and office hours? Do you have a way of verifying that? How are managers doing that?
Hi. While we're waiting, I guess, for somebody to answer that, I have a question.
Sure.
If we were a service coordinator that came into a CCB 3 years ago, are we required to do the bridge training?
Yes. Yes.
You would have gone through the face-to-face training as well.
Mm-hmm.
The bridge training has some updated information in it.
And I think it's important, you know, especially if we don't have the certificates that you completed the other training, we would want to see to verify that you had taken the bridge training. So,
right. I have those certificates. We have those here, our certificates. But I just didn't know that we were supposed to take it the bridge.
It's not required that you take the bridge training. It's just recommended. If you have your certificates that you've completed and met competencies earlier, that meets requirements.
Okay. Thank you.
But yeah, it should be uploaded into the provider database.
So we do have a question in the chat around, do you have plans to provide an online IFSP global outcomes training?
And we can answer that with an enthusiastic yes, because that is incorporated into the EI fundamentals training, both of those pieces. And if we find that we need additional training in addition to that for the IFSP, then we will figure out how to do that. But it is incorporated in the EI fundamentals.
And that's for service coordinators. This is Wayla talking. The EI fundamentals is specifically for service coordinators. We are also simultaneously working on an EI certificate training, which will be for providers, which will be a little bit of an overlap of the same material, the same information. So that also will include information about how to fill out the forms regarding the global outcomes and go for it information. So we do believe that when our new trainings are rolled out, that it will cover our new process. And so I guess that will be yet to be seen if that is effective for what you need in your community, but we believe and hope that it will be.
And I'm seeing some comments in the chat. Thank you, everyone. It seems like many of you are using a new hire checklist, and as supervisors that you were signing off on the completion of those things. So I think that's a great way to track. And Laura has a question, should we be having service coordinators upload certificates in the provider database of all trainings that they take? And the answer is yes, we would need to be able to see those. So the universal training, or if they attend the family assessment training, yes, we would like to see those. And Joy says that she goes over the workbook with the new service coordinators and then signs off and asks them to upload the certificate into the state EI, I'm assuming, database. So that's great. Okay, and then Melinda asks, we had issues with the workbook saving with our new service coordinators. And yes, that we've had a couple calls about that. So please just call me, and I can help try to problem solve with uploading the workbook and saving it, etc. But we have heard that recently that it is not saving. So please just let me know. Wayla is my partner in crime. If I can't figure it out, then she helps me problem solve that. So yeah, just let us know.
And I think the key to that for everyone is to download the workbook before you start typing into it. So do that first, save it under a new name. That's what we found is the key to that. If they start typing into it first and then try to download it, then it's not saving what was already in there.
So we have a couple questions I see here too about what training certificates should be uploaded into the provider database. We must see the required trainings, but it's a great place to keep track of all the trainings. That's why it is interactive, and you're allowed to download or upload anything you want to. But we need to be able to see the required training. Okay. All right, we're going to move on.
All guests have been muted.
A little bit about some of the questions you had regarding providers. I'm filling in for Beth on this section. So we had a confab so I can make sure I answer everything correctly. So first of all, there are provider requirements. They are that all intervention providers shall complete required training as defined by the department. Currently, that's attending a universal training or a CCB equivalent that has been approved. Those certificates should be in the provider database. They must complete the telehealth training if they wish to provide that as a method. And all providers contracting with a CCB who are able to enroll with Medicaid must do so as soon as possible. Right now, this means only OTs, PTs, and SLPs, as those are the providers currently able to bill Medicaid. We wanted to give you some points on contract language and just reiterate that you can include additional training requirements in your contract language. You may make it a requirement to complete the bridge training, CCB orientation, CPR, Medicaid. It's also important that you include in their contract a requirement that they maintain and update their provider profile. That's required that they do that annually. Then those would become contract requirements. The fact of the matter is, providers may choose not to contract if they do not wish to meet the contract requirements. That's always their choice as an independent contractor or provider. Some reminders about how you bill for IFSP meetings or no-shows. Remember that these are billed as transactions, not sessions. Billing for travel or interpreters are billed as session other, and you can review the EI Data System User Guide for more information on how to bill. Travel can be billed either as units or a one-time cost. IFSP meetings are billed as transactions in units. Now no one understands the graphic on this page, so hopefully you will. The CCBs can only use state funds for Medicaid providers to bill one unit of non-Medicaid reimbursable activities at a provider's typical rate. So that means if you have a Medicaid provider, their typical rate that they would bill you if they were serving a child who does not have Medicaid is $60, then the additional rate that they could be paid for activities that do not fall under Medicaid billable activities would be 1 unit or $15. You can still additionally pay them for travel. So that's the graphic. You can pay them for 1 unit for activities not reimbursable by Medicaid plus transportation. This came from a communication brief that was sent out on July 5th of 2016, so you can find that for further information. Beth asked me to reinforce this. She said it is being done incorrectly. So please review the communication brief for more information. Reminders about billing. The IFSP is a contract with the family. Providers should not bill for more units that are indicated as the intensity on the IFSP. There are a few circumstances that may be extenuating that may require more units than are allowed. For instance, if the child's having a meltdown, the parent is really needing a lot of support or instruction around implementing strategies, you can bill for that. You have to note under the description in the billing that the reason for doing so that it's obvious, or else those extra units are going to be denied. And it's really an expectation that this is going to be an exception, that this is not going to happen routinely. This is just for extenuating circumstances. Before paying for a Medicaid allowable service using state funds for a child, this is a lot. Okay, you have to listen to this one really carefully because it says Medicaid a lot. So before paying for a Medicaid allowable service, but through the use of state funds for a child who has Medicaid and is being seen by a Medicaid provider, the CCB must obtain a denial. If a claim is denied because it's missing a component or does not obtain enough detail, it should be resubmitted. So, for instance, if the claim is denied because it said that it's not a covered service, that would be considered a denial. But if the claim is denied because something about the billing is incorrect, every attempt to correct that billing and should be made, and it should be resubmitted. More Medicaid information. According to the Medicaid billing manual, the IFSP is proof of medical necessity, which means that a provider does not need to obtain a physician's prescription. This is something that Beth has been meeting with Gina about regularly, and Gina assures us that if you have an IFSP with all required signatures, that will allow you to obtain a PAR or open a PAR. However, this is not true for home health care agencies because they have different rules, and they do require a physician's prescription. So now you're going to see that I've totally thrown all the responsibility over to Beth for this section. If you have questions, I will not be the correct person to answer those. You should call Beth directly. She also asked me to share with you if you have claims that you feel should not have been denied, please send those to Beth, and she'll support you to work with Medicaid to resolve that issue.
Hello, everyone. This is Ashley Fernie, and we have the results for our fiscal year 16-17 Family Outcomes Survey. And you can see it up on the screen here. This is our statewide results. And as a reminder, Family Outcomes is our indicator 4, and our state target is 94%. So for indicator 4A, which is family knowing and understanding their rights, we remain the same as last year, but we didn't meet our state target. We're at 91, so we're just 3% below. 4B, effectively communicating child's needs. We had a 1% decrease from last year, but we still met our target. And then 4C, helping their child develop and learn. We also decreased by 1%, but still met our target this year on that one. And although we didn't meet our state target on 4A, we're still above the national mean for each of the indicators. The national mean for 4A is 89%, 4B is 90%, and 4C is 92%. We're above, and that's the national average for last year. Okay, you may remember, I think we mentioned this quite a while ago, but we are going to be enhancing our family outcome survey over the next 2 years, and I'm convening a work group to help make some of those key decisions. So an example would be survey tool, distribution method, things like that. So I'm currently seeking participants to be a part of this work group, service coordinators, supervisors, parents, providers, and I'm really trying to get representation across the state, across different CCB sizes. So if you are interested, please reach out and let me know. We will aim to have our first phone call probably in January. So go ahead and shoot me an email if you're interested or if you have any questions about that work group. And then, so this is really hard to see. I'm going to be sending out the link so that you can actually read what's on here. But I just wanted to give you a snapshot of a new format for sharing results with families, family outcome survey results. So this is a fun, interactive way to share the data. And then we have some testimonials. So those are things that families said about the great work that you guys are doing with them. And again, I'll send out that link today so that you can all take a closer look at this. And then I'll send out the CCB specific results within the next month. All right. So just as a reminder, please review the contact information that's listed on the EI website. We want to make sure that the phone numbers are correct, or email addresses, titles are correct, and if there's been any changes in your community, or if something needs to be updated, go ahead and send that to Tracy, and she can get information listed correctly in the directory as well.
So we do have a question about when the online IFSP Foundations, the EI Fundamentals training will be released. And we're not exactly sure. Our goal is that we have it completed by the end of the year. I think we're running a little bit behind schedule because we really want to make sure these modules are, as Monty said, really interactive and engaging. So it's taking a little longer. Bear with us. Hopefully it'll be early next year.
They may also have a workbook component to them because there are going to be 10 modules, but we're also asking for service coordinators to attend office hours. We may have some other required components of that training. We may also put some timelines in for the training, so some of that is still to be decided based on the content in the modules, but we anticipate that will be around December or January, and certainly we will have more information for you and instructions and probably a TA or phone call about all of that when that is happening.
So last month we announced the dates for the statewide meeting. So get out your erasers because due to the hotel availability, we had to change those. We wanted to ensure that we had room and space for everyone that needed. So remark your calendars for May 9th and 10th of 2018 for the EI statewide meeting in Loveland, Colorado this year. So UNC has really generously provided a venue for us to all meet together as a state, and our overnight accommodations will be at the Embassy Suites there. So look for a doodle poll from Tracy to RSVP and so we can start planning for how many rooms are needed, etc. So Tracy will send that out to you. But also, if you want to be a part of the statewide meeting planning committee, please contact myself. This is Monica. We'd like to have 3 to 5 EI coordinators assist with the planning process and the focus for 2018. We'll probably start meeting also, at the beginning of the year, so January or February. And I know that was done last year, and it worked out great to have some input from the EI coordinator, so I'm really looking forward to that. Please contact me if you're interested. There are some additional community of practice go for it calls that were created. These are optional calls. They're not required, but as we were going through this process and determined it would be really helpful to maybe have all cohorts come together to participate in some ongoing calls. So this information is going to be posted on the Community of Practice Call Padlet. I will send it out with the follow-up email from the TA call also, and it will be available for you. We'll remind you as we get closer to February of when that is also. This is a resource that is available, so we wanted to share with you. It's called Motherwise. Motherwise is a new program that's currently in the study phase. This program offers 6 healthy relationship classes with a group of other women who are pregnant or have had a new baby. So within the 3 months, I think their baby needs to be. They provide coaching to navigate work, life, family, relationships with their new child and their family members too. So it is a study. For some referrals, they may not be chosen to participate in the entire program, only parts of it. But for the mothers who are even just referred and complete that initial intake visit, they will receive $30, even if they're not selected to complete the entire course. But for those who are selected to complete the entire course, they can earn up to $200 in gift cards for participating, plus meals. And free transportation and child care arrangements are made for those mothers who are participating also, for attending the classes. The classes and the materials are available in both English and Spanish, and this program is currently located in Denver. And when they came in and presented this information, one of the questions we asked was for families and, outside of the Denver metro area, and they said that there are no income or location restrictions. So if you have a pregnant mother who is 18 years old, you can refer them, and even if they just complete the survey. So we wanted to share this with you, and to, for those who are local but also across the state to participate and earn some support. So we want to thank you all for the work that you do. Every one of you make a difference, and in the lives of the children and the families that we support and in your communities. So thank you all for being a part of the call today. If you have questions, if you're interested in helping Ashley with the Family Outcome Survey or myself with the statewide meeting, please let us know, and thank you very much for being here today.
All guests have been unmuted.
Any questions? Comments?
Please share the service coordination competencies with your service coordinators who are not able to be on the call.
Yes. Thank you so much for joining us today.
Thank you.
Bye, everyone.
Thank you.
Bye.
Bye.